to talk to you now about social media, because if you've seen some alerts and warnings on your news feed on Facebook or on Twitter, you are not alone. Social media outlets are cracking down this year on misinformation around the election. So I want to bring on Yahoo Finance's tech expert, Dan Howley, now to break down everything that all of us have been seeing. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Kristen, that's right. A lot of what you're seeing on social media right now is either straight up news or hyperbole or misinformation. I guess you could say that for any time of year, but now it's especially heightened. We're seeing a lot of reports of misinformation coming out with regards to Philadelphia in particular. That's been going on since Election Day. We've seen things coming out of Michigan and Nevada and Arizona, these big states that everyone's still watching, Georgia. And a lot of that, not surprisingly, is coming from President Trump himself, making claims that there have been ballot dumps, that there are, he claims some states right out of the gate, which was pretty wild. Twitter essentially put a fact check on that. And that's really what we're seeing these companies do, is kind of clamp down and try to put a stop to the kind of disinformation and misinformation that's spreading. And just as a point of clarification, disinformation is purposeful. Misinformation isn't necessarily purposeful. So you would call President Trump's disinformation because it's clearly purposeful that he's trying to get that kind of message out there. Now, as far as recent movements in Twitter and Facebook, there was a Facebook group called Stop the Steal. And that appears to have come from some of the people that were behind the group that tried to fund a wall down on the southern border. The name of that group was We Build the Wall. Now, if you'll remember, the We Build the Wall group was where Steve Bannon, former White House strategist, was involved. He is now going to be was charged with various forms of fraud and conspiracy, because some of the money from that apparently did not go to building a wall, but rather to other means. So some of the people from that group, though, are behind this Stop the Steal group. And Facebook actually put a stop to it. They had around 350,000 people part of that group. And the reason why Facebook took down the page for it was because they were calling for real world violence. And that's something that Facebook tries to stop, although they do have a very mixed record on that. We know, obviously, when there were the issues going on in Wisconsin, they didn't take the measures fast enough to take down some of those groups. But they said that the reason why they were doing that was because of that real world violence. And there's ongoing discussions inside Facebook with employees looking to see more decisive action against this kind of disinformation out there. But so far, it seems to be a piecemeal approach. No real blanket kind of policy for this.
Dan, that's actually a really great point, because I wanted to ask you if we can at all expect, especially from a company like Facebook, and I'm myself, I'm not necessarily optimistic, because we've heard Mark Zuckerberg repeatedly come out essentially against this, but any sort of concrete policy going forward, obviously not for this year's election, but at least going forward in terms of tackling misinformation, not just around the elections, but just in terms of Facebook putting out or trying to prevent misinformation in general.
There's really, it's really just been a slapdash effort all around, right? Facebook and Twitter, they will sing their own praises about how they've taken down networks of Russian bots or Iranian bots or Chinese bots. But when it comes to domestic issues, they really do kind of kowtow to whatever party seems to be in power at the moment. This has become especially clear during the Trump administration, where we've seen reports that Facebook has favored conservative outlets despite calls from Republicans that they don't. They've allowed certain outlets, according to BuzzFeed, Washington Post, and another investigation that from NBC News, basically saying that, look, they have allowed conservative voices to avoid any kind of punishments. They use a strike method where if you cross a certain number of strikes, you do have your page taken out. And they seem to have allowed conservative voices to do that. Now, whether or not they'll change that and flip over to the Democrat side, if Biden takes office, remains to be seen. But, you've seen more and more them coming forward and saying that they're cracking down but it doesn't seem to be any kind of real blanket response. And that seems to be what Facebook employees are wanting at this point.
All right. Well, we will leave that conversation there. Dan Haley, thanks so much.